What's up, self-healers? Lisa Lightfeather here. Welcome to my channel, Closing the Gap, where we make a conscious effort to meet you where you're at on your healing and your spiritual journey. I hope that everyone's doing well out there, and thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to listen. You're appreciated. Yeah? So today I want to come on and speak on the topic of when the empath reaches a tipping point and they remove themselves. They walk away from the narcissistic family dynamic. So within the narcissistic family dynamic, the empath is the one that some people refer to as the scapegoat, the black sheep, so forth and so on, the chosen, right? And the narcissistic family projects the shadow. They have to have one person within the family to project the shadow onto, because they can't accept it themselves. And so they project it onto the empath, and they make the empath the problem, right? The empath carries the family shadow. They carry the family shadow because the empath is the one that's the threat. Now, the empath doesn't go around trying to be a threat on purpose. Like they're not trying to be vindictive or anything. They're just saying, hey, am I the only one that sees this? Or is it just me? And the narcissistic family says, it's just you. And so they start coming against the empath. Yeah? Now, up until that point, they projected on the empath, and the empath is, being over accountable and trying to fix things and trying to save the family and trying to heal the family. And then finally they reach that tipping point where they're like, wait a minute, something is wrong here. And then that's when the family amps up the abuse towards the empath. They amp it up. The narcissistic family would never say, they make it seem like that the empath is the problem of the family, but they would never say, get out. We don't need you around here. You're a problem. Because in all actuality, they do need the empath. They need someone to take on the shadow, to be the problem, because the narcissist does not have the capacity to do the inner work and see themselves. Yeah, they're always going to project and blame someone else. And not only blame them for the facts, but blame them for some stuff that they made up in their freaking heads. Yeah. Narcissism is nasty work. So they need the empath. So the empath reaches the tipping point to where they finally leave. But when the empath leaves, they find themselves in a void, in a space of not knowing where they belong or what they're supposed to do next. And they're feeling a plethora of emotions. And so they may go through, grief. They have to grieve their previous life. They have to grieve their family. And within this grieving process, there's an ebb and flow. Yeah. But what the empath doesn't know is this is the beginning of their journey. But the empath doesn't know that at the time. They're just in the midst of this grieving process. So, because loss is loss. Whether you lose your house in a fire, or whether you lose a dear family member to you, or whether you lose a job, loss is loss, and there is a grieving process. A lot of times we forget to grieve when we have certain losses. We're just like, oh, well, I lost that, let it go. But we need to take a moment to sit in that and say, dang, I lost that. Don't stay there long, but take a moment to grieve your losses, because loss is loss. So what might the grieving process look like for the empath? When they first walk away, there may be disbelief. They can't believe it. Now they're at the tipping point. They don't want to go back, but they just can't believe that it's happened, that they look around and it really just kind of hits them that, you know what? I'm actually alone, because they held on for so long. Remember, the empath has been doing the empath's job since their first breath. They've been trying to keep the family together, save the family pet, save the bird that fell out of the tree. Take up for the person that's being bullied when they're not being bullied because they were the ones being bullied in school. The empath has been doing this work for a long time, but they're in disbelief that they're not doing that anymore for the family dynamic. The empath can't see ahead that this is the beginning of their journey. They can only see what's happening right there, and that's good, because if they could see what was ahead, they'd be terrified. So they go through this period of shock and disbelief, and then they go through a period of denial. Well, maybe things will go back to normal. Maybe they'll be better. Maybe if I try harder, then I could heal them. And so they go through this period of denial. And then they go through a phase of anger. Why did they do this to me? Why me? Yeah? They blame themselves. Maybe I shouldn't have, maybe I shouldn't have said anything about the family issues, Maybe I shouldn't have taken up for my enabling father or enabling mother, Maybe I shouldn't have cussed the flying monkeys out. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. Maybe they start gaslighting themselves. They're angry, but they start gaslighting themselves. And then they get to the phase where they are bargaining with themselves, becoming over accountable, maybe fawning, maybe even going back. Remember, it's an ebb and flow. Maybe even going back to the family and saying, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have cussed the flying monkeys out. Maybe I am the problem, and so they may go back and have to do that process all over again. But they start bargaining, they start fawning with the narcissist. Because remember, they're still in the grieving process. And so how one grieves is there's no rules to grieving, right? And so one may go back and forth, but they're at that tipping point where they already left the first time, and so then leaving the second time is inevitable. Sometimes the third and fourth. Because you have family members, you have the main narcissistic dynamic, right? And then you have their children, there may be grandchildren, or there may be nieces and nephews who you love dearly. And so you may go back into that for the grandbabies or the nieces and the nephews and things of that sort. And then you find out that nothing has changed. Maybe even the nieces and nephews are narcissists themselves, And so you start seeing the mask starts, the blindness that the empath has, little by little, it starts being chipped away, and they have to see. Until finally they're only seeing with this eye, the third eye. Yeah. No heart involved. They just seeing with this side. They're forced to see clearly. So they may go back and forth. And this may last for years, actually. Where they're trying to go back and say, well, it's not my nephew, it's his father. So let me go spend some time with my nephew. Then you find out that the nephew is a narcissist as well. It's crazy work. They could go on, like I said, for years, where the empath is, their heart is constantly being broken because they keep trying. They're bargaining. They're bargaining with the family. Well, I'm going to go to this one. I'm going to go to this one. Because at the end of the day, the empath is a human being who desires to be loved and seen and cared for like any other normal human being. The empath, then, after they figure out that, no, you are actually in this thing by yourself, they may fall into a state of depression, which we refer to as the dark night of the soul. And this could go on for months. The dark night of the soul, when the empath has to go within themselves. There's nowhere to turn. There's no one to call. There's no one there to listen. They go through the dark night of the soul where they have to turn within themselves. And all of a sudden, that's where they meet their shadows. The shadow of the empath is a dark, deep shadow. The pleasing shadow. The never saying no shadow. The I have no boundaries shadow. Please let me heal you, shadow. Please let me fix you, shadow. Please let me love you, shadow. Whoo-wee. Let me tell you something about these shadows. They're nasty work too. So the empath goes into depression, the dark night of the soul, and they have to face themselves. They have to face themselves in the mirror. And they have to do that work, right? If you're in this phase of the grieving process, I recommend Carl Jung. Carl Jung is the master of shadow work. Yeah. There's plenty of information out there. Even on my channel, there's plenty of information out there on shadow work and inner child work. So I have a playlist now. I had separated everything because of the way my brain works. So I separated everything. And so, yeah, you can go look at some of the shadow work or the inner child work. It's massive information out there. So they go through this dark night of the soul, and this dark night of the soul takes them to the pits of hell, back up into themselves, and then to the heights, the heavens, back down into themselves. And now the empath has a better balance. A better balance. They're better able to see themselves and the part that they've played in this narcissistic empathic dynamic. So once the empath is able to see themselves, now they start rebuilding, yeah? They start coping by, I don't know, they may go to therapy. Or they may go see a shaman, or they may go into meditation, or they may go into yoga, and they start blossoming like this lotus flower that comes up out of the mud. Yeah, they start finding ways to heal themselves. And then finally, once they go through their healing process, now this is a long journey. Like, I'm making it seem like it's just bam, 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 but it's not. The dark night of the soul could last for months, even years. The rebuilding could last for years of the person rebuilding and seeking and trying to find themselves. But finally, they come to a point, and like I said, it's an ebb and flow. During that rebuilding, they might think, oh, I got it all together. Now I can go back. Now they'll be able to see me. And they go back into the narcissistic dynamic, and they get tore up again. They have to come back out. And oh, my God, baby, let me tell you something about being an empath. It ain't no joke. The narcissist never does any work. Outside of nasty work, that's all they do. It is the empath that's doing the work, that's trying to figure out what's going on, that's analyzing, that's digging deep within themselves, that's doing all this self-healing. The empath can go down a rabbit hole of self-healing. And then finally they come out of that rabbit hole and they look around themselves and they see that they're alone still yet. When they went down that rabbit hole, they came across narcissists within the healing community. They came across narcissists within relationships. They came across narcissists within their jobs. They came across narcissists within their schools. Whole time they're trying to heal themselves, heal themselves, heal themselves. Spirit is trying to get you to see the energy. Because you don't see the energy until the lessons have been learned. You will continue to run into narcissist after narcissist after narcissist until you can read their energy. Once you read their energy and you see them, you cut them off right there. I see you. You don't have to say that, but you let them know I see you. This is a boundary that you cannot cross. You will not cross. I don't care if I'm by myself for the rest of my life. You understand me? You will not cross this boundary. And you set your standards. And you stand on that, honey. Nothing is going to move me from my boundaries. Nothing. Now, you're not one of these people that cut yourself off from the world and no one out there is good. There's no love. You're one of those people who have been through all that. And now you know how to read the energy. So when something real comes, you're going to be able to see it. Don't worry. You're not cutting yourself off and isolating yourself and you're angry and nobody can get near me and you have all these brick walls around you. It's not that. You've already done that. This is something else. This is not that. This is an empowered empath where they have gone through the shock and disbelief. They have gone through the denial. They have gone through the anger. They have gone through the bargaining and the fawning. They have gone through the depression. Now they're rebuilding, and they come up out of that thing with radical acceptance. You have no idea the power that radical acceptance entails. When you radically accept your walk, you radically accept your calling, you radically accept who you are. Can't nobody touch you, honey. Can't nobody touch you. Radical acceptance is a powerful place to be. Now, it takes a minute for you to get here, because remember, you keep going back to ebb and flow. You're trying to fix it. You can't believe this has happened. But radical acceptance opens the door to the fool's journey. Now, you've already been on the fool's journey. You started the fool's journey the first time you took your first breath. The fool's journey, the 22 major arcanas and the tarot cards. Honey, it's magical. But when you get to this point where there is radical acceptance, it is what it is, and you stand in your power with confidence, self-love, seeing yourself, you've done your work. You know your own darkness, and you've integrated it, and you've loved it. You know your own inner child wounds, and you've taken her or him, and you're safe now. It's safe to come home. Soul retrieval. There's a video on that. You got to see it if you haven't seen it. It'll assist you on your journey. And you step into that radical acceptance. And the fool's journey begins again. Because the fool's journey just goes and goes and goes. But what it is when you step out on the fool's journey, I'm going to do a story on the fool's journey. And so you step out, and then the fool's journey starts again. You start anew, but you've done something that's called jumping timelines. There's a video on that. Go check it out. When you step out when you get to the world card, the 22nd major arcana, and you step out again, you're back at zero. But this time you have jumped timelines. You're on a different timeline. You have new knowledge. You have new spiritual powers. You have a better eye to see. You're balanced. You're whole. And now you step out on the fool's journey again. And a beautiful lesson is in store for you. Yeah. When the empath leaves the narcissistic family, they turn on themselves because they have no one else to blame. So now they have to find a new scapegoat. It's usually one of the flying monkeys that starts taking the hit. That one that usually tries to come get you to come back. Come back. We love you. We miss you. That's the next one. That's the one that's going to take the next hit, and they know it. That's their problem. Head and eyes straight forward for you, empath. Keep your third eye on a swivel, but head and eyes straight forward on your path. Don't you love that? I do. Yeah. So this is what happens when the empath leaves the narcissistic family dynamic. They grow. They grow and they grow and they grow. And it is really the beginning of their true empathic work. Well, that's all I have for you today here on Closing the Gap on the topic of when the empath reaches their tipping point and they leave the narcissistic family dynamic. If you like my energy, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Maybe leave a comment. If you're really feeling my vibe, don't forget to hit that bell notification. It's called reciprocity, and reciprocity is good karma. We'll chat with you later. Y'all have a good day. Tomorrow's Friday. I know you're looking forward to it. See you later.